Lots to talk about in the kingdom today. Chris Jones signed back for 5 years. Irv Smith is here to add depth to the tight end room. Sneed mentioned his desire to stay in KC. Is it even possible? And Mahomes moved his money to save Chiefs cap space. What are they planning to do with it? All that and more. This is Gridiron Gambit.
Welcome, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for tuning in to this Red Kingdom Media production, bringing you raw, authentic Chiefs coverage. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on your team. Now sit back and enjoy the show.
Let's work. Hey.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Gridiron Gambit. I am your host for this edition, and I'm joined, as always, with the better part of my crew, Daily Dale and Lonnie. First off, how you guys doing today?
I'm doing good.
Trying to feel better.
Hey, some Chiefs news will get you cleared right up. We've already kind of been over the main point and had enough to digest the big elephant in the room, so to speak. But obviously, we're hoping for a lot more news to come during this week and into the next week of free agency. So let's go ahead and roll down the today's topics we got for you. So first off, Chris Jones is obviously back. We talked about that earlier. Wrote the article last week that you can hit up in the description. The CEO of Sack Nation is back for 5 years, $95 million guaranteed, possibility up to $160. Was this an overpay or was this price just right for Kansas City? Then we saw also during the week that Irv Smith Jr., the former Bengal and Minnesota Viking tight end, was signed to the Chiefs on a 1-year vet minimum deal. How significant of a move is this, and what can we expect to see out of him during the course of the season? L'Jarius Sneed, he met with reporters, and he had the quote saying he'd love to come back to the Chiefs for 2024 and finish the three-peat. Is there any hope of him returning at all, or has that ship kind of sailed? And then finally, Mahomes was able to move some of his money around, bring up $21.6 million in cap space, putting the Chiefs above the cap limit, which they were previously at that point minus $6 million under the cap. So what moves could potentially be made now that the Chiefs are finally cap compliant? So guys, before we hit on the Chris Jones talk, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Red Kingdom Media. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Give us a like and a share, and let us know you enjoyed what you're watching or listening if you're on the audio platforms. And before we get into it, I just wanted to reiterate that we have made our own Substack. You can read much of our daily updates and also more in-depth articles. And there will be more future content on there that will be for the paid subscribers only. So if you're interested in following us in our Substack, head to redkingdommedia.substack.com to listen in and enjoy some of that content. So guys, obviously the first topic for today is the major topic that came out over the weekend. Chiefs tried to sneak this in on us late Saturday night into for some of us, a spring forward daylight savings. So didn't even really have time to process all the emotion and the information about the Chris Jones contract. And then throughout the parts of this week, there's been 70 million social media posts regarding his return and being signed back to Kansas City. So obviously, the Chiefs were trying to figure out the best way to announce his arrival and his return to Kansas City. But Chris Jones is returning to Kansas City Chiefs for 5 years, $95 million guaranteed, possibly up to $160 with the last 2 years of the contract, but roughly reads as a 31 with some change, extra $1 million a year for 3 seasons. We hyped up $30 million being the major number. And I think if you divide it between the 5 years, that's what it's roughly going to come down to, with a couple extra million here and there. So good on Chris. He got the contract that he was coveting. He got the second most guaranteed contract for a defensive player. He got, the 95 to match the jersey number. So you got that sentimental value. And he went on all the media circuits saying he wanted to retire a Chief. All the quotes before the season was over talked about how happy he was to be here. The dog pile on Andy Reid basically cemented it, and all the cryptic tweets, they all had to lead to something, and they led to Chris Jones being back with the team for the foreseeable future. At this point, it's susceptible to his retirement, 5 years projected, but nobody's worried about the 5 years from now. Everyone is worried about this season and what it means for the defense and what it means for this team as a dynasty in the making and in progress at the same time. So that three-peat was stressed as the most motivating factor. Chris Jones at the rally made that abundantly clear. We all thought he was on one, but evidently he pounded into his agent's ears. I want it done, figure out a way to get it done. And to Brett Veach's credit this time, he did not sit around and wait for something to happen or, let this thing sit out. He was ready for a deal, and he made it abundantly clear this is a top priority. We're going to get this done. We are not going to have last offseason occur again. So just kudos to Brett Veach. People can have their thoughts about whether they think this is an overpayment or not. And I'll pass the ball to one of you guys to start that conversation. But overall, I think we just need to appreciate that both sides came to an agreement, a gentleman's agreement. Both sides got what they wanted, and it was fair to both sides. So the Chiefs got the rest of Chris Jones' prime, and Chris Jones gets this massive pay bump one more time at the very end of his career, and he gets to finish his career with the team that drafted him, the team that he got to see go from playoff appearances to AFC Championship games to finally over the hump winning the Super Bowl. So if you can bring back the CEO of Sack Nation, and he's willing to do it for the end of his career, you can figure that out, and the Chiefs will make subsequent moves around that made decision to bring back Chris Jones. So the jury's out of how it'll look contractually or what the cap will look like the rest of this year and next season. But to have number 95 playing in red for the rest of his career is basically the end-all be-all. Nothing compares to whatever the circumstances around that needed to occur. We're just thankful that both sides worked it out. They're happy with this, and they're ready to move forward and work hard because they know that winning a Super Bowl is not easy. It's not just look back at the magical moments and just reflect. It's work hard the next day and fix whatever's wrong with your team right now into tomorrow. So I'm going to open the floor up. Dale, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts about Chris Jones and this monumental money contract that he received?
Yep. So just to put it out there, I don't think this is an overpay at all on his end. I think on both sides end, I think this was just right. Of course, it maybe could have been cheaper last year if they got it done earlier, because it looks like he just wanted to get that to that 30 million mark. But now he got a little bit over that. But at the same time, it's just like we already alluded to earlier, he's going to finish his career here in Kansas City. Now, once the contract is up and he decides like, oh, I want to give it one more year and go somewhere else, I don't think that happens. I think think he's in a perfect spot right now to where he retires at 34, 35, just because you are a defensive tackle as well too, and you already got 3 Super Bowls. So if you add to that as well, what more do you have to do? Because really, when they talk about the greatest of all time in the entire sport, they always go to the quarterback anyway. And that discussion is going to be between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. So at this point, it's like, I got my money. I'm going to do what I have to do. I think he still does have more than 10 plus sacks this upcoming season as well. I think he still plays at a high level, just because of the attention that he attracts. And I also think that we're building a defense on that side of the ball where it's going to be unstoppable as well too. You're seeing the growth in George Karlaftis. You also have young guys like Felix stepping up as well too eventually this upcoming year. Charles Minihue, after he's done with his ACL injury and he recovers from that, you have more of those guys back over there. So it will be able to open up for him a lot more anyway. But you know how he starts off the season. He starts off hot. He gets going. He's almost damn near unstoppable every time he gets his gear going as well. So I think just it was a perfect fit for the Kansas City Chiefs. And they did the right thing because he is the quarterback of the defense. And it was just sentimental for them giving him 95 million guaranteed as well too, because he has been big 95 ever since he was in college and came into the NFL as well too. So shout out to Chris Jones. I'm happy that you're coming back. I believe everything that you said in your press conference as well too, and it shows. It's just how emotional that you get about it, knowing that you wanted to be here. And just to put it out there as well too, like, this great job, Brett Beach, because I do believe the Raiders was going to try to back up the truck for him, just because they wanted to get that type of guy off of your defense, and he's a defensive minded head coach as well too. So you did the right thing by going ahead and just stopping all that before the tempering period started. You got the contract out the way. He's the highest paid in his position, second highest in the entire out of all defensive players. But hey, he was able to do what he was supposed to do for that defensive tackle group.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say that it's not an overpay for Chris Jones. It was a big number. The number was fairly large when I seen it. Like I said, like you said, I feel like that they get that done last year. The number's probably not as big as what it is, but when you let a guy sit and gain value by going to Super Bowls and winning them, I mean, you have to do what you have to do. So I feel like the Chiefs did exactly what they needed to do as far as paying him. I think it's a very good look for Brett Veach. I know the narrative on him, as far as just Chiefs fans and period of people around the league, is that he doesn't like to pay his guys. Only person he'll pay is a quarterback. So just to see that he'll get out and pay another guy, I think it's just a good look for him overall as a GM. And I think it's also a good look for the Kansas City organization, being all that stuff that came out with the different stuff about the staff and organization, and not being one of the best organizations overall. I seen them ask a couple questions to Drew Tranquil about that. And he said he loved the organization, from the kitchen staff to the equipment staff. So I think it's just a good look as far as that goes too, being able to get a player, keep a player in-house, seeing that people are not going away from that. It's not too bad. Somebody loves it. And I think it's great for Chris, and great for his business. I mean, that's what he was in it for. So, I mean, he ultimately got what he wanted. And I feel like both parties got what they wanted. They got a great pass rusher for years to come. And we have a ton of pass rushers, I think, in, like you said, in that room. So I feel like Chris, only things are going to only open up for Chris. He got some first round picks in there. George, Felix. He's getting a loaded defensive line. He's coming into a room where he's going to have to do seldom to no work. So I think it's great for him.
Agreed. Yeah, like we all stated, it didn't really matter at this point what the price came back. As soon as the news dropped, we were all elated because what the player meant and his energy, and the fact that we've had to see some other players leave the team, most recently Willie Gay, who are really good at being those energy giving guys, making sure you hold on to one of them, like Chris Jones being that defensive quarterback, the pillar on that side of the ball, was extremely important. So great job, guys. So next we're going to move on to the Irv Smith signing. So we know that the Chiefs and tight end Irv Smith Jr. agreed to a 1-year contract worth roughly $1.3 million, the equivalent of a Blake Bell. So I think that's kind of what everybody else is assuming, the third tight end role. But obviously a lot of people are not thrilled with this role because they're seeing all the other more exciting pass catching players getting their big contracts. So, Dale, what do you think this move means for the Chiefs?
I mean, it was just adding depth to that tight end position. Really, this was a Kansas City Chiefs type of move to start off free agency as well. Just because it's like, let's go ahead and take take care of some of the areas that people think is not as important, but go ahead and add to it and bring in a guy that we feel like can, really excel in this organization and a part of the scheme as well too. He's going to be a third tight end. Noah Gray, he is obviously the number 2. He shows that ability, and it looks like he's been learning a lot from Travis Kelce. So he's already been within the system, so we don't have to worry about that. But having a guy like Irv Smith Jr. come in, he was great at breaking a lot of tackles when he first started off with the Minnesota Vikings. Never been a guy who was on the high end of getting receiving yards, but he's a great pulling tight end as well too, who can help in that run game. We like to do a lot of that, especially with Isaiah Pacheco, loving to run in between the gaps. So it just makes sense for him to come in. And then also we like to do our 3 tight end sets as well too. No offense to Blake Bell, but he was getting to that age of his career where he wasn't as, he wasn't great. He wasn't good anymore. He was just there, an extra body. We needed you out there, and that's pretty much what we got from him. In his earlier parts, when we got through that first Super Bowl run, I know he made a couple plays throughout that run in that playoffs. We saw him do it against the Texans, Titans, all of that. But still, he just was not as efficient anymore. And then he went somewhere else, and then we brought him back. And then you also was dealing with Jody Fortson, who been dealing with injury. When he was out there, me and Lonnie love him a lot. Like if he was good and healthy, we wouldn't be talking about Irv Smith Jr. right now. But it's just we're dealing with injury with him, and he's 28 years old, about to be 29. He's been with the organization longer than a lot of us thought because we haven't seen him as much out there on the field. So just bringing him in, I think it just made sense just to go ahead and try to get that going, get him working with Patrick Mahomes already, and he'll be another guy who can catch the ball and really can be able to open up, and he knows how to read those zone coverages as well too, be able to kind of pick that apart and sit where he needs to sit. So that's going to work out going forward, going into next season, because we know what we dealt with last year. Wasn't able to do a lot over the top. We're still trying to find a guy who can do that, and we'll talk about that later on in the show. But it's just it adds more to the arsenal. And what I like to say all the time, we saw these guys with everybody else, but we haven't seen them with Patrick Mahomes. And sometimes Patrick Mahomes, he does elevate people to the level that they can play at their highest level. Just because we just saw that with Justin Watson. Noah Gray came out of college from Duke, was like, one of those later round picks, was able to make something happen with him. Rashee Rice, you saw him in the second round. We saw Patrick Mahomes work with what he had, and he was able to succeed with it. So Irv Smith Jr., it's not a move where it's like, oh, we brought him in, great job on picking him up. Nah, it was just added depth. That was smart to get that going right now, because we got other contract negotiations going on that, is going to take a longer period of time. So I like it. It's fine. It's not the end of the world for me, and I think it will be, a great situation going into the season.
Yeah, and like you were saying, I think it's Kansas City-esque. Like you said, on the move is it has Kansas City written all over it. This is reminiscent of when we're running a lot of 13 personnel, having Jody Fortson line up. When we really just had one of the best high flying offenses after post Tyreek Hill. We had a lot of 3 tight end sets that we were able to run. So this move just makes a lot of sense. Like you said, we didn't have Jody Fortson this year. We have Blake Bell. We try and run some of those passing sets with Blake Bell, and that's just not really his strongest suit as far as the passing game goes. But I really think this is a more of a move just to get that 13 personnel back into effect and really getting that play action really back going. We got a running back that you said we'll lean on, or willing to lean on. So I think this all makes sense. It made so much sense for the Chiefs fans. I know Chiefs fans want to see a high flying pass catcher, but we are trying to play sound, good football, and not just sign any willy nilly person out here on the streets, and have another MVS in here sucking up money that's not doing anything. So this move makes just too much sense as far as personnel wise, and how they're trying to get the offense to look.
I agree with both of you, and I think the thing that sticks out with me is a lot of reception. Is what does this move mean? Why make this move? You already have Jody Fortson. Jody Fortson was not on the team. They were going to have to sign him to a new contract that would have been at the number or the same as what Irv just got. Irv is younger and he has more of a pedigree. He didn't see it throughout the NFL, but he was a second-round draft pick, potentially could have been a first-round draft pick tight end. So there's something to be said about that. The Chiefs definitely covet an athletic tight end now that they've seen what having one can do to their franchise. So they're going to do whatever they can now to continue to upgrade that position and make sure that when Travis gets a break, it does not look like, complete garbage out there in his replacement. You want some competency. And I think the jury's out until we see injuries and the course of a season go on, but this could be a security clenching move right here just because of how valuable the Chiefs find the tight end position to be. Does it lock the chance that the Chiefs take a tight end in the draft? Not necessarily, but it will definitely make people contemplate whether or not there is that desire to add to the tight end through the draft. So maybe it's a red herring and they'll end up drafting one anyway, and we don't even have to worry about this conversation. But I think we'll see how useful he ends up being as the season progresses. So that being said, let's move on to our third topic for the evening. We've got L'Jarius Sneed. So at the same time Chris Jones was having his press conference, L'Jarius Sneed was basically seen out at the Big Brothers Big Sisters in Kansas City, and he was talking to reporters. And the big quote that came out is that he'd like to stay at least for 2024 and finish the three-peat. So Lonnie, a lot of our conversations have been he's definitely traded. But now that we've seen a lot of corner contracts through free agency and what the hope of the draft capital that would return in a L'Jarius Sneed trade, are you kind of leaning more back towards the L'Jarius might return to the Chiefs, at least for this season?
Yeah, so that's certainly a way that I'm leaning. Is him returning back to the Chiefs, just being like you said, being that we're seeing a lot of corner contracts, seeing that we're seeing the compensation that they're willing to give out for corners. It's not great as of right now. The market was not as I think lucrative as what we may have thought for L'Jarius Sneed. I think a lot of that stuff may have just been a lot of fishing, as far as putting a lot of those names out there, as far as teams went, and like I was watching Pat McAfee. Marco Lombardi says every team that calls is a team that they'll list as interested, but just because you call doesn't mean that you're really interested. Doesn't mean that there's any dialogue there. You may have just called about a player and inquired. So that's one thing, but to really have some verbiage on the home front is another. And we haven't seen a lot with L'Jarius Sneed. We've seen the Tennessee Titans talks in there, but the Tennessee Titans don't have a third round pick. And like Dale said, the highest compensation that we've seen for a cornerback so far is a third round pick. So anything more than that, we just don't see it being possible for L'Jarius Sneed. So which is leading us more into the side of us just keeping him. Him staying on the team maybe being a better situation than him being traded away for lower compensation, and not being able to get somebody or try and sustain or add someone to the room close to his caliber or potential of being his caliber. So I I I think the more time that goes on with this, is the more chance that L'Jarius Sneed stays. So I don't think that the days passing is more chances that he's traded. And when we get close to draft time, I think we may see something there, but I just don't. I think they'll be more on set on having who they're going to have at their positions and going in with a plan. As far as the draft goes, I know Brett Veach is a guy that likes to attack that draft and even free agency with a plan. They like to pre-plan, so I just don't see it happening. The more closer we're getting to draft time, more time we're losing. The more likely I think L'Jarius Sneed stays the Chief. Now I don't know if he gets paid. I don't know if they come back and renegotiate. I know that they said they weren't going to pay him on that tag, but I don't know if they come back and do something a la like kind of Chris Jones esque. What they did with Chris Jones, kind of figure out some way to do an extension and call it a 1-year deal. But I think he stays. The more time we're losing here.
Yeah, yeah, I don't really disagree with that one as well either. I mean, it's always like that, right? Typically, the longer the person is not being, shipped off, even after a request as well, too, more than likely, it's like it's more conversations being had with the team that you're a part of right now, and it's obvious that L'Jarius Sneed wants to be on the Kansas City Chiefs just because you won 2 Super Bowls with him, and you have a chance to be a part of history and go ahead and three-peat. So even like I know we were having this discussion earlier. We don't know how, possible that can happen. But if he was to play on the tag this year, what moves can we make in the offseason if he's going to get that? And we know that we like to see how things go. That way we see what money we have as well, too. So, I mean, if it's if something can be, solved on both ends, I would love to see it happen. But I do think that they're still trying to at least find a trade partner because they do want to have some cap space. That way they can kind of go ahead with what they're trying to do in this offseason and pick up some guys that they're trying to get. But like I said, we're going to talk about that more with our next topic, but to see what we can do. But really, my hope, I do want him to stay just because if you keep him with that Chris Jones contract that you have already, your defense is set for 2024 and 2025. So it's like we're fine. Like you still got McDuffie and them on their rookie contract. You still got Bolton and Drew Tranquil you just signed as well too, along with Leo Chanel, who's a part of that Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis draft class. So it's like you're fine. Like if you keep him, we're not worried about secondary. You're going in and being like, hey, I'm only worried about wide receivers and trying to pick up some more weapons on the offensive side of the ball because the defense already showed you what they can do. So, like, if you can figure it out, just, hey, like I said, like we talked about earlier, if nobody trying to give up like second, third round picks, like, all right, we'll just go ahead and keep him, and we'll figure out how to do the rest later on. So that's all I gotta say about it.
I'm completely with you. It's the 19.5 million that makes me nervous about whether the Chiefs will actually, bite the bullet and just give it to him. I think Sneed would be more than happy to take that because that's more than what any amount during this offseason, during free agency has been handed out. So I'm sure he would love to have the franchise and for a long time. But if you're the Chiefs, you want him to take a number far less than that and keep him for far more years. So we shall see. I'm leaning on the more hopeful fence, but I'm just not sure that is like the final plan that Brett Veach had. So I think we have to see a couple more things out before we can really convince ourselves that Sneed is staying for long term. So before we move on to the final topic of the evening, if you guys missed it, make sure to go back and check out the previous episode of Gridiron Gambit where we broke down the news of Drew Tranquil and his 3-year signing. Let alone did we know the next episode would have even more giant news than that. So if you're interested, go check out the most previous episode and then come back here and let us know about it. So that leads, we were hinting at it. Yeah, Mahomes, he restructured his contract. So all the conversation about is there enough money in the cap space, they were negative. Mahomes freed up enough money that the Chiefs were able to now be about 15 million over the cap in not negative. So they could go to the draft or they could potentially sign somebody else. But the Chiefs are now over the cap. They're no longer stuck. So the Chiefs could pay L'Jarius Sneed the franchise tag and leave him at that. But there's also talks that they want a wide receiver. They want another defensive lineman. They want another offensive lineman, whatever the case. So it doesn't seem like they're going to just sit on the money that they did acquire. So I'll pass it around. Let's get Lonnie's opinion first. What do you think the Chiefs are looking to do with the almost $22 million that they gained from this move?
Yeah, so it's definitely have to be go find a weapon. We've all talked about that. I think all Chiefs fans are just thirsty and coveting any weapon to run in here to possibly be the next deep ball catcher here in Kansas City. So definitely to package it together to go get a weapon. But I want them to go get multiple things. But just the way that the market has been looking, I don't know if that is enough to really do anything with. Um, just as far as realistically going to get multiple players of any caliber to kind of come in here and be like day one starters, unless you're getting like vets, like guys that are coming in on 1 year prove it deals. But I definitely know that they're wanting to go get a pass catcher for sure. And I definitely could see them doing that as far as just bringing in somebody in that guard position, being that Joe Tooney is up there in age. He's coming off of a pec injury. They lost Nick Allen-Grady, but I've also been thinking that they'll go to the draft for that situation as well. That's a position that they'll be looking to get younger at. And I could see them potentially going to get a defensive lineman, but that market is just, I feel like, is very big and kind of scaring the Chiefs away just as far as money goes. So I think the Chiefs fans are thirsty for a pass catcher, for them to go spend the money on a pass catcher. So I think that's what they're looking for. I'm looking to do with it is going to add somebody explosive on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, well, honestly, when I think, everybody keep on alluding to Hollywood Brown. I think they would love to have him on the team, and he's the build of all the guys that we like to have on the team. So
Right.
it makes sense. But one guy I'm actually looking out for, and people are just, because they want the best available option. I feel that they feel if that's out there right now, especially after their Calvin Ridley signing and him getting 92 million with the Titans. Curtis Samuel. I'm looking at the stats right now. It's like this is a Chiefs wide receiver that they have been getting in free agency. Been consistently over 500 plus yards. 800 plus has been his best year. Last 2 seasons, he had around he averaged around 600 yards a season from there. So I mean, him coming in, they compare him as a speedy option as well too. Saw a couple of highlights with him being a great deep ball option when even covered by 3 guys, able to come down and still score a touchdown. That that sparks my interest a little bit. And then I don't think he has really drop issues. And I think when you look at it as well and you put it out there, I'm still looking at Rashee Rice as the number 1 receiver anyway. So I'm not looking in to bring in a guy who's going to be over Rashee Rice. I think Rashee Rice is going to be someone after this upcoming season. He's going to be 1,000+ yard receiver from there, just because he's definitely great underneath and he's great after the catch, and he's going to get those opportunities, and he's adding to his game as well too, being able to go over the top. But bringing in Curtis Samuel, he's going to be a deep threat option that you can blow over the top with people as well too. He's short-handed. He's not as bad as what we seen last year. That's why we got rid of MVS, right? I think he will be a better version of that, and I will be fine with that. Also, he's not going to command as much as Hollywood Brown as well too, because Hollywood Brown had 1,000-yard receiving season before with Lamar Jackson in his unanimous MVP season. He had 1,008, and you know how they view him as a running quarterback. So being able to get that with him, he's going to look like, what do you think I'm going to do with Patrick Mahomes then? So he might be like, give me what MVS had, I will do better with that. And some people might be like, nah, we want you to really prove that first before we go into that direction, where it can be like that disconnect. And then also, yeah, and if you were able to figure that out, if Curtis Samuel a little bit cheaper, maybe you can see what you can do with L'Jarius Sneed. Like you said, we'll give you more years, you'll get more money over the amount of time, right? So if you're with us for 3 or 4 years, you'll make well over that 19.5 that you get in 1 season. So if we lower the cap hit a little bit for us, that works out. We can still go get some people, because we're trying to get a tackle as well too, right? We're trying to add to that and also add to the defensive line. So if we can piece together a little bit of what we can in the free agency, that way in the draft it's like we're just getting whatever we want and we're getting whatever added depth we need as well too. So, but great job, thank you, Pat, for the restructure.
For real, thank you.
Yeah, and that's the best part about his his contract, is that it can easily just be restructured at any given moment when the front office deems it's necessary. Hey, the joke is that this could have been done years earlier, and they could be willing to take like 100% of his salary and put it as signing bonus if they're willing to have a gigantic cap cut the next year. So they're being strategic around it and how much money they're choosing to take out and use. I think at this point for me, if Hollywood Brown is not the long-term goal during free agency, I think at this point you keep who you want from your current team at whatever price you've offered to them, and hope that some guys like a Mike Edwards or a Mike Dana, anybody named Mike really, Mike Pinnell, shout out, come back. But I feel like some players make their return, but at this point, if you had to give L'Jarius Sneed that full franchise tag, I think they'd be okay with it if they could go into the draft and get a couple offensive weapons, get another tackle, get some more defensive help, get some more linemen. If they could go into the draft and get those high priority type value players, then the money is well spent. But I think much of the kingdom would be a little upset if they go into the draft without adding to the wide receiver room. Personally, I'm okay. If the Chief wants to be full defense and keep drafting full offense, I am totally down with that. Let
Right.
Pat handpick the certain players he wants, because something about Rashee Rice. We can debate all we want. They had chemistry right away, and it worked out for them. So there's something to be said there. So it doesn't have to be the first overall pick, Marvin Harrison Jr., to have a great wide receiver. If you've got a receiver that Mahomes trusts, that's half the battle. And we saw that immediately go away with Rashee Rice. So let's see the Chiefs take 3 or 4 shots at that in the draft if they can, versus just 1 or 2 if they choose to keep this money and reserve it for their core pieces and L'Jarius Sneed staying as possibly one of those options.
And can I add to that, Clinton? And when you think about it as well, too, is we can be thirsty, but the Chiefs don't want to be as thirsty, because I think they're looking at the wide receiver room now and look like, you know what, you guys just got like the bad end of the stick. We got off to like a rough start. Yeah, I wasn't able to recover, too much pressure on you guys. Like everyone was looking for just a reason to like bash on the team and try to bring down Patrick Mahomes. Now they were able to overcome, but when you look at the roster, it's like Scott Moore, all right, you could have been a lot better. You're not a bad route runner, though. Like, hey, just make sure, hold on to the ball, you fine. You don't need to be like the guy who was big yak, but if you could be someone who's dependable, know where the first down line is at, catch the ball, get whatever you can after that, we can rock with that. All right. Justin Watson, you already got the connection with Pat. You were a deep threat where you was able to do those post routes, be able to find a way to get open, come down with it. We got that. Rashee, you're his number 1 option. Like, you are a yak guy. You get the ball in your hands, you're going to make something happen. I just said 3 receivers that you can kind of like, all right, you got MVS out of here who had some of those drops. You don't have that problem no more, right? You're going with that. Kadarius Toney, you might just be at the back end of the roster, but we know what you can do as a punt returner. So, I mean, like, going in the draft and be like, Pat, who you like out of these guys? Who's going to work with right now? Who you saw that we didn't even put out there throughout the time you was working out with some of these people before the draft came? I want him. And he come in and do the same thing. And I'm still on the Nico train. Like, nobody, people forgot what he did in preseason. Like, if we don't even touch nobody and you just go in the draft, like, I'm just want to see what happens next season. Like, y'all weren't prepared for this in my head. Like, y'all was keep on talking about who we had before.
Receiver room people were thrilled about before the 2023 season started. It turned out crappy, and the only move the Chiefs did was get rid of MVS, and we're in the same boat that, hey, no, we're fine. We got what we need. To invest in the draft. We're good.
I didn't even say Justin Ross' name. Let me shut up. Let me leave it alone. Like, people that we was hyping before. And this was the same roster when we had Juju. Juju just left.
Hey, there's 2 types of fans. There's those that believe Justin Ross is the GOAT and he's going to break out, and that the only good wide receiver is Marvin Harrison Jr. And if you don't get him, you basically have nobody. And everywhere else in the middle is real life, and that's where the NFL lives. So
right.
like we're just saying, give Veach enough shots, he will hit. As we've seen the last go
Absolutely.
back at his draft classes, not even just picks anymore.
Classes.
2018 happened. All the years since, there is not like 3 or 4 bad players in a draft class, and there's 3 to 4 starters or key contributors or solid backups or whatever. Brett Veach has continued to fill the roster with young talent, and that brings up the issue of paying your young talent when franchise money comes around. And we're having that conversation with Sneed, and we'll probably have that conversation with Trey Smith next year, and you know, maybe Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey, they don't get that privilege because they seem like they're already built into the core, but history will show. But the Chiefs have enough money, they can continue to go through free agency, or at the very least can go into the draft and be able to sign their draft class. But I think most of us are expecting some other more moves to be made, but maybe not necessarily cheering them on. Depends on what the move is.
Hopefully they can work something out with Juwan Taylor. They said if he restructured, like kind of convert his stuff to like a signing bonus or whatever, that can like create some cap space as well too. And that was like added in with like the MVS let him go as well too. So I don't know how much exactly, but at first if they did all that together, it was going to be like crazy 60 million. So it's probably within a good ballpark. That would probably put them in the 20s if that was to happen as well too. So it's like a lot of stuff can happen with that. And you know, I can't wait to see what's going on, but you know,
not a bad move considering all these offensive guards are getting the exact same contract that Juwan Taylor received last offseason to play a tackle position. So the NFL, bad teams have money to spend in free agency, and it's going to show that the Chiefs aren't allowing the best of their best players to hit free agency openly and to just walk away. If they let a player go, they have an idea of his replacement, or they are okay with the production they got out that they could supplant with somebody else.
Really, really advantageous position that they were put in by their GM. It's going to be hard to tell a guy like that he's not doing his job right, and he doesn't know what he's doing. So we just kind of got to sit back and watch at this point.
That's right. So the jury is out on what moves are coming next, but that is it for this edition of Gridiron Gambit. Thank you so much for watching us. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Red Kingdom Media. Give us 5 stars on Spotify. We also have this week where there should be a new article up by our newest contributor, Rodney. And we should also have him on the next edition of Gridiron Gambit that we have scheduled for later this week. So, fellas, do you have anything you'd like to add before we close this evening?
Everybody keep your eye on Twitter, and we'll find out what's next.
Yeah,
constantly refresh.
Keep your eyes open. We definitely will be posting any like latest stuff that will be coming up. So be on the lookout for that. Like make sure to check it. Make sure you follow us on Twitter as well too. And also like you see me on there as well too. And also on Facebook, I'll be dropping all like updated news. So just be on the lookout because something can happen within the next couple of days, even the next couple of hours. But we'll see what happens.
Probably will happen.
That's right. The Chris Jones news happened as some of us were going to bed. So the NFL, a lot of news happens. These players and agents are up in the late hours of the evening. Former Oklahoma center was getting calls from a certain wide receiver in the NFL hoping to join up. So who knows if that ends up being something, but just wanted to throw that in there. But we will see you guys later this week. Like I said, follow up on our Substack, follow us on our social medias, keep up with all the breaking news around the NFL just as we're receiving it. Have a great rest of your week. Be safe out there. God bless you all. As always, go Chiefs.
Thanks for checking out this update straight from the heart of Chiefs Kingdom. We appreciate your passion, so please leave a like and follow us wherever you tune in from. see you next tailgate, your trusted source for all things Chiefs. Red Kingdom.